Hello, hello. This is your host, Dyutima, and welcome to My Food Lens podcast, where we talk about everything from food photography, styling to business and mindset. After 15 years as an architect, I switched careers and I'm now a professional food stylist and food photographer based in Singapore. I'm also the founder of the business My Food Lens, where we help clients elevate their brand through drool-worthy photos. My motto is put your best food forward. Well, here on this podcast, I promise to keep it raw and real and hope you find your answers, action, and inspiration as we move through the episodes. Welcome to another episode of My Food Lens podcast. I'm very excited for our guest today, and it's because I have a personal connection with her. She is one of India's top food bloggers and someone I met a few years ago in Singapore when I had kind of just started getting into food photography. At that time, not many people know that at that time, I was kind of considering food blogging as a full-time career. I actually started my creative journey as a food blogger. Of course, the food blogging part never saw the light of the day because I shifted gears and quickly went into the photography side. But I still remember that early on in my creative days is when I met Uma Raghuraman. Yup, she's our guest today. I met Uma at a cooking workshop here in Singapore, and I still remember the food that she made was, of course, like jaw-dropping, drop-dead delicious, so awesome. But I still remember that there was something about Uma. At that time itself, Uma was a very well-acclaimed food blogger in India. But there was a sense of humility, humbleness, love for food, passion. There was something so genuine, so down-to-earth, and just so grounded about her that she immediately connected to the people who were in that room. And that's why, if I tell you today the achievements that Uma has, you'll just be blown away. Uma is, of course, a food blogger, all right? So she's also a cookbook author. She's a past Server Vlog Award winner. She has also won the Netflix My Chef's Table Instagram contest. And this year, 2022, she made it on the Forbes India list. Like, that's no joke, boss. She was voted as one of the top 100 digital creators by Forbes India this year. So clearly, Uma knows her game. Clearly, she's coming from the right place. And clearly, she's hitting the mark again and again and again. And which is why she hit the mark for me right when I met her. And I wanted to bring her here today because I think that she can share so many big value bombs with us all about food blogging because God knows she's a master at it, right? All right. So with that, on to Uma. Hi, Uma, and welcome to My Food Lens podcast. Oh my God, it's amazing to have you. Whenever I have guests, I usually start by saying, I'm delighted to have you. It's my honor to have you on the podcast. But for you, I think I'm just going to say, thank you for gracing the podcast with your presence because I think that's your aura. That's how I see you. You are humble and simple, and yet you are reaching such new heights. And I think that's how I see your food blogging as well. It's simple, it's down to earth, it connects so deeply to people. And yet you have taken food blogging to a whole different height. And we'll get into that, all the nitty gritty, all about that very soon. But I just want to shake it out. I want to get a bit of energy and a bit of, fun into this. I'm going to ask you to start us with something fun about yourself. Tell us something fun, something interesting that we might not know about you.
Hi, Dyutima. Thank you so much for the intro and for the love, actually. It's because of love from people like you, my followers, that I've got what I have today. Thanks to you all. So thank you so much for having me. And interesting question, actually.
Yes.
I think everybody knows that I cook. That is one passion of mine. But then there is another passion also, that is music.
Oh, wow.
So maybe not many people know that I'm a trained singer. So I'm classically trained. I've learned Carnatic music for 8 years, 7 to 8 years. Even few years ago also I went and I was learning more. So there's always so much to learn. Bhajans is something I really love.
Oh,
so I love singing bhajans and I love listening to bhajans. So that is something I think
Oh
not
my
many people
God, that
do.
is very interesting. So you are a creative in the true sense. Your photography is an art, singing is an art, music is an art. So you're really immersed in all forms of art. That's amazing. And also for our listeners who don't know what bhajans are basically devotional songs to God and like a prayer song. So that sounds like that's one of Uma's favorite music.
And I think another thing I would just add is just for the fun element is I think many will love this. I love earrings actually, good
Ooh,
jewelry.
and if
So
you can't
wherever I
see
see, wherever I go, that's something I pick up. Like if I see a good earring, I can't resist it. So I have to get the earring if it is big or small. Because growing up, that is something they would say don't wear. Because in school also they would say don't wear huge earrings. You'll have to wear something very small. So throughout my growing up years, I won't only start earring. I always used to see people having long earrings and wearing long earrings and always think, wow, how lovely. I wish I could wear those. So all those desires, now I'm fulfilling. The biggest of the biggest earrings also I would like to try and have. So I have a huge collection of earrings. So what to gift me,
Yes, yes, absolutely. No spices for you, only
Yeah.
earrings.
I think that is something not many people know.
I think so. And I can see you right now. So I want to tell everybody who's listening that I'm looking at Uma and she's wearing the most beautiful peacock necklace and she's wearing these huge chunky earrings. And I was so happy that she showed up like that for a podcast interview. So she's looking lovely
I
right
can actually make a lot of content only based on my earrings and jewelry sets I have. Of course, they're
now.
not very expensive. I wouldn't invest in gold and things like that. Even the junk jewelry, they're just so beautiful. So many creators there, and I just love them. Love
and you
collecting.
and you carry it so beautifully, Uma. Like this is looking so
Thank you.
lovely. And I think actually I have to say that I think I see that love for the traditional, for the background that you come from. I feel that in your photos as well, because you bring those elements of saris, you bring all of that. So I'm going to get into that in just a little bit. But let's just start with food blogging. Tell us when you started and how is it different today? Because I think food blogging has gone through a whole 360-degree turn,
Yeah.
especially recently. So
Yeah.
tell us what it was when you began and how is it today for you?
See, it has always been difficult for me. I would say that it's never been easy because it's like getting into something which you don't know absolutely. You know cooking, but how do you express it? How do you convey it? Whether it is writing, whether it is photography. For me personally, it has always been a challenge because I am not from a technical background. I'm not from a computer. I'm not an engineer. I didn't have access to computers and I've been a teacher. But this
Ah,
technical part of it has never been my forte. So I've always found it challenging and difficult. Difficult, I would say challenging. Yes, it's always been a learning curve. So even that time when I got into blogging, I had to read a lot. So what it is, how to publish a post, what is the size of the photographs that you can upload inside the blogging, why something will not get uploaded. I still am in Blogger only. So I started my blog with Blogger and Google Blogger. And I'm still in that only. I have my own domain, but then it's still in Blogger only because I'm very comfortable with it. And for me, conveying it is important more than the other things of
aesthetics, the
aesthetics and
aesthetics or
other
the
things of it.
presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, all those things. I felt that it has to be conveyed. It's just like writing a letter, the charm of a letter.
Yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
have email, you have so many other forms of WhatsApp and other forms of things. But a simple letter has its own charm. So I consider my blog as that a simple place or an old book. It may not be very beautiful. It may not have the latest graphics and other things. But then a book is a book and an old book, especially,
Yeah.
where what
Yeah.
is there. Reference. It's like that. So that time it was like that. Now it is again, you see the latest. You take, for example, the latest things from Instagram has moved from the static posts to reels, right?
Yeah.
That is the hottest trend and people are not liking it. Again, why? Because it's something new. It's something you'll have to learn, adapt, and people always don't want change. You are comfortable with something and you don't want to change, right? Because again, that involves again a lot of new learning curve. I would say whether it is those days when I started in 2014 or when it is today, 2022, there are always challenges in this area of food blogging. There
It's
is never a
constantly
place where
changing.
you can be very comfortable. Never.
Mm.
So I always find whether it is those days or these days, there is always a challenge.
And
And whatever level you are, whether you're just a beginner, I was a beginner at that time, and now I'm 8 years into it, but still I find that it's continuous learning process. And there is challenges thrown at you every time. You feel that you're comfortable in something, pictures, then they bring in IGTV. You're comfortable with IGTV, they bring in something else. There's always
right.
something coming up.
And do you think it was a bit like, I feel like there's also a lot more information available today? You know, for 8 years ago, not many people were like, how to be a food blogger. There weren't so many tutorials. There wasn't so much. You really had to get in and search how to build your website. And do you think that's changed today? More information is available?
Yes, absolutely. Because now people are willing to share.
Mm.
Those days, people are not very willing to share, you know. If you're successful or if you're into it, they're not readily willing to share. At least in India, I would say that not many people, even if you come to recipes, you see people will not share their family recipes. They will say it's a secret and they will not share the family recipes.
Yes.
But now things have changed, right? Now people have opened up a lot and they are willing to share. So that I think definitely has changed. Those days it's very difficult. You'll have to get into books or books. Even finding books is very difficult. Then there's Pinterest, and even in Pinterest you'll have to search and see, and you'll have to really search how to do so many things, how people are doing it, and even meeting people was difficult. Now you just do a DM. It's so easy for us to interact.
Right.
With the media. Those days there is no chance for creator to creator talk. There's no heart to heart there. And now people are very open and free and willing and very happy with success of others. So which I think is a very good change.
It sounds like it's a good time also for folks to really think about food blogging if they are looking at it as a career option. This is a good time.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it's very important for a food blogger to kind of have a very, very narrowed down niche. Like, you know, you can't create recipes for everybody. Food is so diverse. And I feel like you've definitely chosen a niche for yourself. So first of all, I would love it if you can just tell our audience how you would describe your niche. Like what is the kind of recipes you create, you know, in 1 or 2 sentences. If you can just give us a crux of that and then tell us, how did you come down to that? Because I think that is a true challenge for a lot of food bloggers because everybody loves cooking. But how do you come down to what is the real food that you can create for years after years after years? So tell us a little bit about your niche.
See, my mantra is very simple. I have 3 things. That is simple, healthy, and tasty. These are the 3 things. The recipe has to be very simple. The ingredients that are available locally at any place, easily available ingredients. Definitely has to be healthy. I don't like to add in any thing which is not good for health because in the long run, we're getting old every year. So it's not going to be sustainable. So something which is healthy, whether it is for kids or whether it is for us, whether you're cooking for your family, friends, that is the second thing. And definitely, if it is not going to taste good, then you're not going to repeat that recipe. You're not going to do the dish. So that is again a priority. So these are the 3 things that I always focus on. So if you see my recipes, every recipe, whether it is a cake or baking recipe or whether it is regular everyday meal thali or anything, there will be my touch in it where I make it a little more healthier than it is. At the same time, taste not compromised. Of course, this is my mantra.
Very cool. And also, I feel like you bring a lot of your ethnic culture and heritage and background and your family recipes. You have a very signature kind of a flavor palette that you create within. So one will not find you baking, just chocolate cake, like off the hook. Even if you create something, it will be healthy and simple. But mostly, like majority of your recipes are very, like, is it from the place that you come from in India? Or tell us a little bit about the inspiration of your recipes.
See, first, when I started out, it was only, I started out when my kids were in school. And I was creating a lot of lunchbox recipes. Like for me personally, the food I grew up, as you say, is very culture-based. So I grew up in a Tamil Brahmin family. So my recipes are basically Tamil Brahmin recipes. So you will have a lot of heirloom recipes and those recipes. But in the blogging, I did not come to blogging to share those in the initial days.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So what was it like? I was brought up in South India and I moved north because my husband's job demanded that. So here in the north, the recipes, the dishes changes every 10 kilometers in India. So
Yes,
there is
yes.
so much of difference in the spices, to the way it's presented, to everything, to the flour used, everything. There is a lot of difference. So there was a lot of learning curve for me. And the important challenge that came with the move is packing lunch boxes. Because in the South, if you see, even today, you have a separate bag, lunch bag, a small bag with a lunch box, with the water
Mhm.
bottle, the snack box, and a napkin and a spoon, maybe. And it is very important. That's why you have a separate bag for it. But here, it is incorporated into your backpack. We don't know how children carry, the water bottles also incorporated in
Right.
the
Yep.
backpack, and there's just one box, small box, which they carry. And I was like so puzzled. How will the rasam rice not pour out, or the curd rice not, pour out, like what do you say, spill
Yeah.
inside the bag? And how do the mothers pack? And half the time the tiffin box will come unfinished. And so I used to ask them what do they bring and everything. So that's how,
Yeah, yeah.
they used to tell me that they bring snack in a box, and they used to roll the rotis with stuffing. And I used to learn a lot. So that time I started learning a lot of North Indian recipes. Then I started learning a lot of international recipes, because that was the time when you had all this malls with the food hall and,
The
food
youth
courts.
supermarkets, the youth
The
supermarkets
food,
and the
the food
food.
courts with different restaurants and everything. In Gurgaon, it was really starting to flourish that time. So my children were into pizzas and burgers, and pastas were introduced, and so all those things. But at the end of it, I wanted it to be healthy, because I thought this is not sustainable. I
Right.
cannot send this every day like this, and it's not good for them. So how do I make it healthy? So that was the thing always going in my mind. I used to create new dishes. And I wanted to share this. And
Yes.
that's why I started my blog,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
I thought, let me share those recipes. So every day after I pack my lunchbox, I used to come and sit and write
Oh,
in the
wow.
diary.
And that's how you
What
came
is
up
the
with your
because
cookbook, is it? My
Exactly.
Genius Lunchbox. Wow. All right.
Yeah, so my blog has more than 100 plus recipes, actually. And seeing that, the publisher came to me saying that why not take some from that, and why don't you create some new ones also? And because a lot of mothers, that's how my followers started. Like, my followers were initially all mothers, young mothers, were looking for new ways to bring in healthy food to the children, which they will
Yes.
also have fun, which is presented beautifully. They will not know that there are healthy ingredients inside. It's very tasty, but we know that it is very healthy inside. It is something
Yep.
that's sustainable, and children will love and will not go towards the junk. So that is something how I started.
And I love it. I love that your niche actually came from, I would say, maybe a necessity, and then it came
Yeah.
with the curiosity, and then it came with the desire to make it practical for your own children.
And
So,
actually, it's fun. I had a lot of fun. See, I still have a lot of fun when I create a new dish. It's a lot of fun, because one, it's thrilling. It's really thrilling, because you don't know how it is going to be, and the reaction, how they're going to see, and how they're going to, and then naming of the dish. Even my dishes are all named differently, because
yes.
it's new. I asked my children to name it, and it's all new and creative recipes. So that's how. And coming to the traditional part of it,
Yeah.
the food that I have grown up with, and I'm very, very passionate about it. Even creating those lunchbox recipes, it's because of this, because I do not want my children to forget the roots. And I want
Wow, I love it.
that taste palette to always remain, And I think I'm successful in that, because they love their rasam rice and, sambar rice equally to the pizzas and pastas. And they do cook also. So in that way, I think it is very successful formula which I have used. So that was something. And how to connect, how to show my love for the traditional recipes is what you see, the representation, because that is exactly how passionate I am about this.
Yes.
As much
yes.
as I am about creating new recipes.
And we see it. We can totally see it. Actually, that is a bigger part of how I see your work. I really see you connecting back to your roots. And I feel like that is such a takeaway from what you're saying. Like, to find one's niche, and if one is confused, one way to find your niche could be that you see where the gap is in your own life, right? How you can fulfill that. And the second one is really connect back to the food that touches your heart, which really, strums the chord for you. So there are different ways that you can find your niche. And for you, Uma, you've brought all of them together and then come up with your Simple, healthy, and delicious. Your three magic words
Yeah.
that work for you. Fantastic. Love it. So I want to ask you something. Like you've been a food blogger now for 8 years. Am I right? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And do you think there is a word, like, can we call somebody a professional food blogger? Like, I'm a professional food stylist, professional photographer, but do you think, because I've not seen many people say that I'm a professional food blogger, but do you think that in a true sense, we can say that, okay, this person is a professional food blogger? Would that be right to say?
Definitely. See, like any other profession, food blogging is a full-time job, and it requires a lot of time, effort, and of course, skill. Without that, you cannot be in that particular industry. And you have these three, then definitely you're a professional. You have that
Professional.
skill, yeah, and you're spending that much amount of time and energy in that particular field. You are a professional.
Mm.
So definitely, food blogging is a professional
Prof-
job, and yeah, especially if you're full time into it, dedicated to it.
So I love that you bring up skills because you're using your skills, you're doing that full time. Love it. That is so true. But I have to, since we're talking of skills, I have to tell you something. I have never seen anyone more skillful than you in making idli and dosa. So I still remember that you were in Singapore, and that's where I met you. You were in
Yeah.
Singapore, you were hosting a cooking workshop, and I was one of the participants at the workshop. And I come from mostly East India and I've lived my life in North India. So I'm not familiar with South Indian techniques of cooking, and idli and dosa is not my forte. So when I saw you make that idli batter, it looked like a piece of heaven. Like I've never seen something so fluffy. It looked like cotton candy. I felt like, I don't know, I was in another world. And I have honestly, being the most honest I've ever been in my life, I have never seen anyone make idli batter like that. So you truly have remarkable cooking skills. I have seen it firsthand, you know. But if I had to ask you, like food bloggers, this is not just the only thing they need, right? I mean, it's not just about cooking and knowledge of food. There's so many different skills you need. And I think you mentioned a little bit of that in the beginning, especially when you started out. What other skills would you say that food bloggers need to make this like a profession?
See, now there are different types of food blogging. So it's not initially, it was only recipe blogging when we started out. It was only recipe blogging and not any other type of blogging. But nowadays, there is so many food blogging also nowadays is going out to a restaurant, trying out food, and then, taking pictures of those and sharing your feedback. Even that is also food blogging nowadays. So the different types of food blogging. So for any blogging, I think the first thing, like you had a first-hand experience in the
Yes.
workshop, but yeah, so that's a great way to know this. Yes, she knows she has the skill, but then not everybody does that, right? In blogging, people eat through their eyes, through the
Mm.
eyes. Yeah, so first thing is photography. So since they eat through the eyes, and you want them to either go to try out in the restaurant or try it out at home, they first need to be convinced that the food looks good. So photography is number one skill that you definitely require for people to get tempted to try out the recipe or try out the restaurant. So whatever
Right.
the case, so
Mm.
photography is one skill that definitely you have to keep learning. And as you say, in challenging times, in today's times are changing. So the blogging is slowly getting into the video space, right? So nowadays everybody does a video of the recipe. Even if you write the recipe, it's there in your blog, or it's many people do not have the blog, still food bloggers, because they are in the digital media space, and that is still blogging. But even that, for that, you need good photography and videography skills. So
Mm.
those two are like a must haves. Next, third one is expressing. Like third one is your recipes. If they are on point, then people can try it out. So before that, I think you have to test it well. You have to
Mhm.
try and test it, taste it, everything, that, and then you put it out. I think that is another thing. So for that, you need to be good at cooking. I would again insist on that. It is not that you try a recipe from somewhere, you read from a book, then you just try it on and then you do it. I wouldn't say that would take you far. It
Right.
should not be like that. It should be something that you have done for years also. It's okay if you don't share anything immediately. Till you perfect it, till you are convinced, like it comes subconsciously to you. In fact, it's an interesting thing that, CR, he
Mhm.
used to ask in the Singapore workshop. He used to ask me the same thing, How is that you do things just like that without referring to anything, without seeing anything? How do you do, whether it's making idli or dosa, whether it is styling or whatever it is? He says, he used to tell that, how do you do it without? I've seen people refer to recipes, even if they're in the workshop, there will be a paper with the recipes and the ingredients list, because that time from India to Singapore, the amount of ingredients that I carried,
Yep,
you would
yep,
remember that
yep.
we had the showcase of all the
Yes.
various spices names. So I had brought everything, and the list also, like from there to urad dal to everything. So the list was big for us to do that. So I did not have any paper or anything. I used to tell, and even there. So I used to ask how it, because that is because of the years. So I did not start blogging just like that. There's around 15 years cooking experience of mastering things before you start something. So that is
Mm.
something, there's no hurry to immediately do something and share immediately. Share only those things that you feel you are the best at,
Right. Yeah.
and you have mastered it. Then in that way, people will also trust you, your blog. That's how you develop the trust
Mm.
of people. Otherwise, you will not feel like going and visiting the site or their Instagram handle or anything again. It is just simple, pretty pictures. Then what is the use, right? So the recipe has to be perfect.
Yep.
And the way you're expressing it, the proportions, the measurements, all those have to be on point. I think that's a skill that every food blogger, if you're a recipe blogger,
Yes.
then you have to master that.
I think you also have to kind of love technology. Because I don't know, unless you can hire somebody to like maintain your website and all of that, I feel like there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of maintaining a blog. If you are really into like a fancy, you're getting a WordPress or a Squarespace or whatever you're getting your website on, I feel like that to me is like a bit challenging. I'm not a food blogger, but I am a blogger. So I feel like the tech part you kind of have to love it. If you can't outsource it.
No,
Do you think so?
absolutely. That's something I still have to. That's work in progress, Jyotima, because that also involves a lot of investment, right? So you need to, as you say, you need to hire someone, and then you'll have to, if you're maintaining a website by somebody, then you'll have to pay them monthly, whether it is your domain or whether it is maintenance, website maintenance, all those things you need to invest on a monthly basis, certain amount of money. So then you have to see whether you're earning that much to maintain it. And is it adding value to your followers also, your blog readers?
Yeah.
Is that adding value? A great website with everything, is that adding value, or is the content adding value? So
Right.
you have to really make a decision whether it is your personal choice, whether you like it because everybody is doing it, you want to do it, or whether you really want to do it, which will add value.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
that is something. I think if you're professional, like you are meeting clients outside and you have a portfolio there and you want them to see, and your website is where you're directing them to go check out your work. I think then it makes sense to really, really put out a great website with everything in place, and it's worth the investment. But for me, I feel that, as I said, it's like that old book, where people come and they have the comfort and they know they're cooking food, and they don't really require other things. I feel it's that one particular recipe they are coming to, and if it is not going to change, other things are not going to change much, and they know it is the same person.
Yes.
Like, it's like that. It's like you meeting me. Suddenly, I do different things to myself, and I look unrecognizable. Then there is no point of me, right?
The familiarity. Yes.
Yeah, the familiarity. I feel. I think that each one has to take a call in that department. In which field are you in? Are you going to add value to your end customer or end user in that way, or what is it that they are looking at? Why are they coming to your site? That you have to just think and decide for yourself.
So
just not go with what the crowd is doing and what others are doing, because everyone is different.
Different, so absolutely. So I would say, cooking. So I'm just going to recap. So cooking skills, then we have to have the knowledge of food, try, test, and really have a very robust system of coming up with measurements for our recipes. then
Yeah.
definitely photo, videography, tech part, whatever else that we want to add that comes naturally to us for a blog. So we need to have all of those skills and not just alone love for food. Love it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going
That is
to
primary, of course. We can do all those things. This is a lot of work, right? When you say itself, actually, you will have to take
everything
deep
comes
breaths.
together. Yes.
So many things.
So, I think you bring up such a great point that photography and videography is really like the backbone of food blogging. And I think so many food bloggers have started investing in photography. They learn from professionals, they learn online. So, tell us a little bit, how did you learn? Because you started at a very different time and you do both photos and videos. So, tell us a little bit about how did you learn?
So I'm a self-taught photographer and videographer, if I can call myself that. So it was just learning as I did it. It was not, I was not looking for perfection. That is something I would say.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, I was not looking for perfection. It is just, as you were saying rightly, it is my recipes that I wanted to put it out there. Like, those lunchbox recipes. I started with those. So it is next day, next dish I'm going to cook. Next day I'm going to share it. If I don't share this today, tomorrow it's going to be a different one. I'm going to miss that
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So that was my main thing when I started. Not think much, but of course, it was always nagging me that why are my photos not so great? Like, why is the angle like this? How can I make it better? What is a mistake I'm making? So if you see the initial photographs, this is common for every food blogger, I think, who started, those days, because there's always a learning curve. Initially, your
Yes.
photos are not that great, but as you start practicing and taking photos, it changes. I did take a few photography workshops, but that was much later. That is
Hmm.
when I wanted to learn the DSLR, how to take pictures. So
Right.
initially, I started with my iPad. So my husband had gifted me an iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my pictures are from my iPad initially, and then I moved to a iPhone, and then it has been iPhone only. So I do dabble with the DSLR then and now to practice,
Hmm.
but then my pictures in Instagram and my blog are all from my phone.
Oh,
So I'm very
wow.
comfortable with my phone because that is very sustainable for me. See,
Yeah.
as we are talking about sustainability, right?
Yeah.
And as I said, everybody has to find out in which they are comfortable in. No point in doing something just because somebody is doing it.
Yep.
You need to know your strengths and you need to express yourself best. You need to know in which you're expressing yourself best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, in focusing on something else, if I'm forgetting something about styling or the dish, then there is no point. If I'm just focusing on other things and not on my food, then for me it is not creating happiness.
Right.
So I have to choose something which makes it's fun for me first. Otherwise, it becomes like a chore. Then it's frustrating. And in food, I think your vibrations they reflect. You cook food when you're dull, it shows.
Yes.
When you when you
Angry.
cook food angry, it shows. How much ever beautiful you take, it will show. I can feel that actually. Some days
Mm.
you're dull and your picture will show. So I do not want to force something and do something. So I which comes naturally to me, I do. So I'm very comfortable in iPhone. So I take my pictures in iPhone. Video is also the same. There is a certain vibe in which you cook, right? Where you think of something and you cook, or you're feeling happy, or it's just that, or you enjoy that part which you do, like frying a puri or
Yeah.
making a dosa. You're just enjoying that. And if you can express that, show that to your audience, then that's success. Like that's
Mm.
really nice.
You're conveying
You
the
know?
emotion. Yes.
Yeah. I'm still learning that. I won't say that I've done it very well. I'm still learning every day. So that's how my photography and videography skills are evolving actually.
Yes. And I think you bring up such a great point because when we are doing so many things, we kind of have to pick our battles. We have to find our strengths and we have to play to those strengths. And not everybody has all equal strengths. So, for example, for someone like me, my niche is photography, and the exact opposite happened to me. I was spending so much time cooking and in the kitchen that it was tiring me out when I actually was enjoying the photography part. So that's why many photographers buy their food to be able to photograph them versus cooking. So you did exactly the opposite. You were finding that the cooking process is where your love was. Then why not do something that works for you from a photography standpoint? And phone is quick, easy. That doesn't mean that it is any less in quality. It still
Yeah.
takes skill, and phone sometimes takes more skill. So
Yeah.
I totally see where you're coming from. This is so interesting. I think you really leave our food bloggers who are listening and, those who are listening and who are really thinking that, oh my God, I need to have so many skills. You're really leaving them with a lot of leeway and a lot of room for thinking that what are their strengths
Yeah.
really and how they can make their life easier if they don't want to do everything. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I absolutely love it. So let's get into just a little bit more on photography. I know that that's not the most joyful part of the process, but you do say that you have to bring out the emotion of food, right? You're creating it in a certain, either you're happy and you've enjoyed your process. So when you put your food ready to take a picture, what is it that you really try to showcase? What aspects of photography are you really trying to showcase in your food? And this is basically food bloggers to be able to, narrow down and not get lost in big compositions and making something fancy. But as a food blogger, what should they be focusing on in photography?
Actually, Ditima, I love photography. It's not that I don't love it. It's
Yes,
actually,
yes.
I just love it because it helps me to convey, like, talk to my audience, right? So it's a platform for me. And if you see, there are things in my photographs which I love. There will be a piece of jewelry, or there'll be a piece of my sari,
Yes.
the
Yes.
blouses or the borders, the colors. If you see, they'll all be the colors which I love. And the mix of colors. I like to paint also. So I do paint according to the mood, and I think of
Wow.
a dish, I paint. So I do all these things. So photography is one thing where you can express yourself. So I make sure that I'm able to express myself. It's not only the food, but also
Yep.
the background of the food.
And
That
storytelling. I think you're really telling a story through your photos, especially
yeah,
that is the time when I got introduced to your work. These are the kind of photos that you were creating. And for me, there was a very strong sense of storytelling because they really portrayed one, emotion, and two, your background, the
yeah,
recipes, the essence of recipes. So I completely see what you're saying, in
yeah.
terms of using those elements for photography. So that is
Absolutely. If you see, if I'm using my grandma's vessel, her recipe in her vessel, and even if I have a sari of hers, I use that. It brings a lot of joy to me while I'm doing that. It is only that, maybe I'm not using those gears like big lights, I'm not using, all those I'm not using. But through the photography, I want people to really feel what I'm trying to express. It's,
the
and even that
connection.
connection, and even the food, it must be appetizing, like you see that it is prepared fresh.
Yes,
And
yes.
yes, and with my own hands. If you see, the food plate will have my hand somewhere, because and sometimes it's oily, sometimes it'll have a little bit of dough here and there. So I
Yeah.
don't mind, because I would have stood there for 1.5 hours, 2 hours cooking. At the end of the day, definitely my hand is going to be like that. My back will be paining when I'm taking pictures, but still, if I want to convey it, then I'll have to take that extra effort to convey it. So for food bloggers, I would say, like, what are you trying to convey to them? Are you just showing the food, or is it some story that you want to tell them, that it has something, or is it just the elements in it, the colors and the textures? Is that what you want to focus? So you have to be clear what you want to share. That first thing. And second important thing I would say is focus on the light.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're using natural light, whether you're using artificial light, get your light right. That is something I feel will change your game completely. You're getting your lighting perfect. If you don't have good light in your kitchen, because I remember during initial days, this I actually did not really observe. Okay, Ditima, just like you told me about the workshop, and CR also told me about, like that, another friend told me casually. In fact, she didn't tell me directly. She told me when we were the group of friends, she was staying with me for a week. She was observing me quietly. She did not tell me anything. When we were all meeting, friends get together, she was telling, this girl, she cooks food. She takes the entire thing, whatever she takes to the bedroom. Okay. And then she will bring all her props, her boards and everything. She will place everything. Then she will take photographs. Then she will call us, and she will invite us, and then we will have food. But she does this. That was because that time only my bedroom had light. and I had to place it down, or I have to take a stool or something and place it in an elevated place, and then bring and keep. And sometimes things are very hot. The
Yeah,
rasam
yeah.
will be pretty hot, and will be hot. Then from there to here, then here to there, and then again you have to heat it. Delhi winters are like so like that. So it definitely requires a lot of effort. You have to try different lights, whichever is suiting you, but that makes a difference.
It definitely does. And I love it because I think this is the part of food blogging that does not get shown. People don't understand the amount of back-breaking work that you need to do
Yeah.
just to set up. Like cooking is only one little part of it.
Yeah.
Everything else that goes into it. Oh my God. And photography
Yes.
itself, like it's it's probably one of the bigger chunks of
Yeah.
labor that you need to put in and think about. So you brought up a very good point, which segues us into the next question. You said your friend, she does this every single time, every single day. So first
Yeah.
of all, I have to say that if you're married or your partner is a food blogger, you're not going to be very happy because you always have to wait for food. That
Yes.
definitely happens.
Raghu will agree.
And the second thing is that you have to constantly come up with new ideas. You have to constantly keep creating recipes. Like to me, the fact that you said that you had to share that lunchbox recipe that same day because the next day would be something else. So I think that is a really overwhelming part for many folks. And especially in today's era where content creation has become like the biggest job one can have. So tell us like maybe 3 ways that food bloggers can actually create recipes or content just consistently and easily. What would be your top 3 ways?
Yeah, the first one, I think you answered yourself. There is cooking constantly. So you have to cook. If you are a recipe blogger, then you have to constantly cook. Some will be good, some will not turn out great. So there will be something which you can share always. So one is cooking, keep cooking. And the second thing is, I would say that, as you said, experimenting. So bring in a lot of new ingredients. Try new ingredients, new vegetables, or new fruits, or new spices, and bring in some fun element in it, which will be nice, and you will be excited to share actually in that way because you have created something new, and you will be bubbling to say something. So something happens in town, you are immediately wanting to tell someone, right? Oh, this happened, this happened. So in similar way, I think when you try with new recipes, new things, new ingredients, and something new and yummy turns out, you will be excited to share it. When you're excited to share it, you will share it. That consistency will come automatically because it's something new, something fresh, and you are very interested to share it. So I think that is second thing that definitely you'll have to that will help you. And the third one I would say is, if you can make it get it into your daily routine, just the way you do other things, like a habit. Today I will do even a small part of it. It can be photography, it can be cooking, it can be blogging, can be writing a few lines, maybe referring to books, anything, because reading again, you're reading, you're trying out new recipes or something like that, you will again want to try. That will again get you back in track, and you are in the system every single day. You are part of it. So if you can make it part of your everyday routine, somewhere in the day, fit it, and it is there, then definitely there will be consistency.
So cook more so you have more content. Cook exciting stuff so that you're excited to share and you don't feel like it's a chore that you need to do. And the third thing is just make it a habit so that it's second nature. It doesn't feel like you're doing something extra. Those are so practical. I love it. They are so practical. And I feel like it's like, again, a muscle. The more you flex it, the more it'll work for you. Fantastic.
Exactly.
So tell me, who else helps you in creating so much content? Like you are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, your blog. Do you have any external help? Do you have other folks who help you at all in your photos, videos, either permanently or just do you bring professionals in to help you to create more or better content?
Actually, I don't have anybody helping me out. It's my support, my husband's support. He appears in my videos and he waits for the food, because it gets delayed, as you said. It's a very important thing because definitely your food will get delayed because after cooking, It's going to take time to photograph. Of course, I ask him to eat, but then he waits for me. Very sweet of him. So that is one thing. And so I have not had any help actually. But for a very brief time, when I started my YouTube channel just before the pandemic, I had hired a videographer for just taking the videos for YouTube. But there was a very short time, and then the pandemic hit. 2 3 months, it was, and then that's it. No physical interaction and all that happened. So again, back to me taking the videos. So I do not have, whether it is blogging, writing my blog, or whether taking pictures or videos, I do it all on my own. So that's why
Wow.
sometimes it gets, in a day it takes, sometimes it takes even 10 to 12 hours a day, of work. Because from prepping to cooking, then to taking photographs, and then sometimes a recipe takes 2 3 days also to go on air. So that is a kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you
It's
need to find
backbreaking.
people who are. Yeah, it is. So I'm my own team.
Oh wow. So it's amazing because you consistently put out content, your recipes are innovative, creative, and secondly, I feel like it looks effortless. It doesn't look like you're complaining about it and that the 12 hours of work don't show. The only thing that shows is like pure joy, whether the way you show up on your videos, the way you're cooking a recipe, or your husband's appearance, when you're doing the cooking. No, every time that you're on screen or you put out your food on screen, I feel like it shows the joy. So it clearly means that one can do it even without help, as long as you can make it a habit, you can be consistent, and put out things that
Yeah, you
connect
need to
with you.
put in those hours of work. Definitely. You need to put in those hours of work and be really, really passionate about it. So that is one thing. Definitely. As you say, it doesn't look, you're saying now, I think your viewers know that it does take so many hours of work.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that sometimes what happens is in the comment section, if you see, they would still ask for say I would have already posted the recipe, and the next day, as I told you, like it's not those recipes just I make only for the blog. I cook them regularly at home, and I am sharing them because there's thousands of recipes to be shared. All more, I've shared more than 1,000, but then there is more than so many more recipes for me to share. So I have shared a few recipes, but still people do ask, "Can you share the recipe?" And if I tell them that I have already shared this, do go check out my YouTube channel. Or go, they will say, "Can you do a reel of this?" I still think, "Oh my God, I have done this already." So I think nowadays, I think in social media, it's also repeating those same things
Yes.
is also essential, because some of them see, some of them don't see, some of them just say like that do share. Why can't you share the link? Share the link or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to face all those things also. So yeah,
And I
it's a
think that's such
constant work. They
that's
don't
a,
understand that there's so much of hours of work involved in creating a recipe. It's not like me telling you just like that.
and I think that is such a great point of act, especially when you're cooking every single day, you're posting on social media every single day. I think it's such a good way to repurpose all content, because you never know who's seeing when, and you can always bring back old content because there might be new audience who's wanting to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Uma, tell me one thing, like out of everything, if I have to ask you to point us to one thing that would be your biggest challenge in food blogging, what is it?
I won't be able to place just one actually. Like I told you, in the initial days, I would say photography was a challenge. Initial days, how to take the photos for the blog. That was a big challenge. And as I told you, I was using an iPad. Then I came to know that iPad has these restrictions. Then new features. Then you have to take, the camera makes a difference. And everything is a learning process. So that time, that was challenging. Then in social media, how do you post in social media? Learning how to post in social media. That is a challenge in one time. Again, posting in multiple platforms. How do you do that? And also post it in your blog. So that again is a challenge that you have to learn and do it. Now, moving your blogging pictures to videos. How do you do that? The movement. Whether you want to be in the video, whether you want to show your hand, or what is your priority, and how do you take it? Do you shoot it yourself? Do you call someone? All those things, those are the challenges. How do people do it? Do you need to get a gear? Do you need to get a stand? How do you take these shots? Those are all challenges. Next, now the latest I find is you do a recipe, but how do you show the recipe within 60 seconds or 50 seconds? Fast, because some recipes are not, it's very difficult to compress them. Are we doing it too fast? No, why should we do it too fast? But then it is like that, the format is like that. So that is the biggest current challenge that I'm facing, how to squeeze so much of content in 60 seconds. So every day there is a new challenge, and I think that will keep coming, and we just have to find our best strengths and just stick to that.
So definitely these are challenges, but I think the positive part of these challenges is that everything is learnable. There is nothing out of this that cannot be learned. It's not like someone is born with these skills. So anyone can learn these skills. Like even if they are challenging, there are so many resources. There's so many ways of learning this. So one can overcome those challenges. So thank you for putting this out, that there's a positive spin to the challenges in food blogging, and there is nothing really that can hold someone back just thinking that, oh, it's not for me, because it requires you to know da 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 da. So fantastic. Love it. I'm going to switch a little bit of gear now. I'm going to, let's talk about, because we've been talking about professional food blogging. So we've talked a lot about creativity and inspiration and photography and the artistic and the passion side of it. I want to switch to the more practical side of it. And so tell us, Uma, do you work with brands, and do you monetize your blog right now?
Yeah, I do work with brands, and my monetization is mainly Instagram and YouTube. Facebook, of course. So it's more of my social media channels that helps me monetize my blog.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about that. Like, how do you reach out to brands, and what is the kind of work that you create for them, and how do you actually decide? Because you have a very solid niche, right? This is the kind of recipes you create. So how do you decide who you work with and who you don't?
So fortunately, with God's grace and the love of my followers, brands reach out to me. It's always been that way. And they share their values, and they share what they require from me, and what is the brief, and what is that they're looking for. And of course, I also share my value proposition, how I can bring value to them. And based on that, if it works out, and if it really clicks, then we work together. It's pretty much like you sent me a DM and whether we can do this podcast. I had a vibe immediately, and we have met before, and I know you, and immediately we do this podcast. It's pretty much like that. So that brand, you have grown up with the brand, or it very, very
familiarity well. Again.
It matches your values and what you stand for, and then then the synergies are there, and then we work together.
And healthy is definitely like, so for example, if you're creating healthy recipes, do you look for the health component in that brand, and is that important?
I would always say that if it is something that I have used, or I have bought for my children, or it is some brand which I have grown up with, it is there and I've used it and I've grown up with it, I know it, then there is no thing at all. That's the only thing I see. I know them? Have I grown up with them? How is it? Like, have I bought it for my children? Then yes.
Nice. and tell us a little bit, like, in the capacity of a food blogger or a food content creator, what are the different services that one can offer to a brand? Like, let's say creating recipes could be one, or social media content. So just give us a little bit of a breakdown that how you work with brands and what are the services you offer them.
See, one, you can create recipes for their website. If you're good in creating recipes, then you can create recipes for their website. So that is one thing. So you can be a food writer. You can write columns. That is also there. You can write columns for their website. You can share recipes. If you're into, maybe Ayurvedic practice, or, any other health and those kind of things, you can always write for them. That is one way you can work with brands. Another thing is sharing recipes in the social media channels, of course. You can always do that. For them, you can do separately videos. If you're creating only for their channels, like every brand has their own social media channel. So if you want to create content for them, then of course you can do only for them. It will not reflect in yours, but then you can be a professional creator, recipe creator for brands as such. And even videographer or photographer, you can be for brands as such. You can do that. It will reflect in their website. Of course, they may not give you credit, but then you get your money.
Right.
So, that's a proper so you can do that. And of course, if you want to take the, enough, you have a considerable amount of audience, and then you can take up this, individually creating content for the brand that is close to your value proposition.
Yes. So basically, it means that food bloggers have opportunities to make money or collaborate or even work in the capacity of a food photographer. There are lots of opportunities that they can creatively think about when they are working with brands. Have you ever come across like a situation where you're like, oh, this, I do not like this? Have you ever had a challenging client or a very challenging situation when you were working with a client?
I think that comes with every brand, every client, because every brand has their own brand guidelines, and you have a particular kind of style, and you have a particular kind of working, and no timelines kind of thing. So when you're working with brands, that is one thing, I definitely it puts you in a challenging position where you have to upskill yourself, whether it is taking shots, product shots. They would want product shots in a particular way.
Yeah.
If it is a video, then you would like the romancing shots, that's how they call it, romancing shots in a particular way. And you will have to do a little bit of back and forth, sharing it, whether they like it, and you will be in the middle of a recipe, but then this is also important. And you will have to share that back and forth happens while you're doing shooting. And when you're doing it alone, sometimes when I'm shooting for a brand, it takes an entire day. It might be just one dish I'm doing.
Oh man.
You would see it for 30 to 40 seconds video, but what goes into that takes a day, because those product shots are most challenging. That's what they are looking for, right? That's why they're collaborating with you. So those things will be a little bit of a challenge, but then it's again a great learning, because I learn a lot, because which otherwise you don't learn.
Yeah, true.
Because it's your content which you're putting it out. And your content is always very close to your heart, and you cannot, it's like a baby, you cannot see any flaws in it. But the brand, they're working with a brand, they will pinpoint every little flaw of yours. They can see everything. So, you will know exactly what are the things you have taken it for granted.
That is so
which
true.
You have not seen. They will see every little honest thing in the video, from the background to your something is not clean, or your cloth is not ironed. I remember a brand telling me the cloth was not ironed.
Oh wow.
And I told them that's the texture of the cloth, that's the tussar cloth, and that has the texture. No, I had to redo it. So the reshoot had to happen. So this is another entire day which went, and
oh wow.
Usually for food bloggers, festival time is the main thing. Festival time. So it will actually be a Diwali day, but then you will be working. It will actually be your New Year, your regional New Year, your Yugadi or whatever, but you will be working. So those are the things, that
those are challenging.
Working. So those
yes.
Challenges, definitely. It helps you to improve later. Definitely, you will think calmly. But during that time, being a human, you will get agitated.
And also, I think that you've just answered one of my other questions where I asked you that, can we call food bloggers professional food bloggers? I mean, how is this different from a corporate job? So many times as creators, we are almost working all weekends. And now we are even working on holidays and festivals and, a family time. So how are we working any less? If anything, we are working more. So this is so totally a professional thing. Oh gosh, it's fun, but I can imagine how challenging it must be.
In fact, I remember campaigns. I remember that day we were taking delivery of our car, and I had the timeline, and I was telling the client just an hour. So I had to just sneak out for an hour, just get the delivery, come home, and I had to finish the shoot. Like it was like, even for your special days and other days, if you have committed to something, then it is very, very difficult. And most of the times for food bloggers, it is during festivals. That is the real season,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're talking about all the hard work that we have to put in, and it's literally as much as someone would put in a corporate job, or, even more than that. But tell me one thing, what has been your experience? Like, I think the perception is that, does food blogging, can it put food on the table? Can it pay rent? Can someone make enough money or income to support themselves financially? What do you think, Uma? Like, do you think food blogging can be a full-time business generating enough income or not?
Yes, absolutely. It can. You have to just give it 100%. And if it is a full time, you're into it full time, definitely it is a viable profession. And it does take time. Initial days of struggle is there in every being an entrepreneur in any field, right? But it is definitely a viable profession.
Right. And I think that is one of the things that holds people back from actually moving to a full-time blogging job. So if you had to give advice to someone who came to you and said that I want to become a full-time blogger, but right now it's just my hobby or it's just part-time, I have another full-time job. What would be your advice? How do you think part-time bloggers can move to full-time blogging?
That is a very challenging question, actually. I would ask if they have a partner who can support them. That is the first thing I would ask, because you need that support in the initial days. You need somebody to be an anchor for you in the initial days. If you have that, then definitely you can plunge into it. It is going to take a few years for you to establish yourself in the field, and then you can earn. You can be on your own. Just it will equal to your whatever
Right.
you're earning.
Securing
But
your
for the initial
financial state is
financial
very important.
security, definitely you will get. But for the initial days, if you're going to plunge from being a part time to a full time, if you have a partner or somebody who's supporting you financially in the initial few years at least, then definitely you can get into it. Otherwise, you have to really think, if you don't have any other support, whether you'll be able to get into it. Are you in a position to get into it at whatever stage of life you are in?
Right. And
So I
especially
think that is
because
very
you
best.
said that it does take time. It takes time to build your name in the market, to start putting your content out there so that it's reaching the right people. So it does take a bit of time. So or you just need to save up so that
Save
you
it.
can
Yeah,
make the switch, right? Okay. So you would say
definitely.
financial stability is the number one. Having that is the number one way to actually switch to being a full-time food
Yeah,
blogger. Yeah. Other than
definitely.
that, everything is learnable, everything is figure outable. You just make the switch, keep going. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's very practical, and I think that's very real. For sure, that's
Mm.
very real because that is the one inhibition most people have. But I think what is very consoling or encouraging is to know that it can become a full-time job, and at some point, if you really work, then you
Yes,
can
yes.
make as much as you were making in your previous job or even more.
Yeah,
So that is very
yeah.
encouraging. So when food bloggers are actually getting their foot into the market, they are reaching out to brands. What would be your advice? Like let's say 3 tips that you can give to food bloggers who are wanting to reach out and work with brands. What would those be?
Hmm. So I would say one is you'll have to talk. You should not have any inhibitions, and you should be able to talk to people who are not able to relate to food, because not
Hmm.
everybody in the brand end will understand food, right? So you should be able to talk. That is one. Whether it's agency or whether you're talking to the client, you should be able to talk without your ego getting in. Number two is explain to them your value proposition. How you are different and how you can bring in value, and what is your idea. Like, you have a certain code, and you have, just like their brand guidelines, you also have a few guidelines for yourself, right? So which you do not want to change. Try and explaining that to them.
Yep. Mm.
Yeah, I would say that.
So it basically comes down to having an expressive conversation and then
Yeah,
also being able to tell them, here's what I stand for and here's what I can bring to the table, and then
yeah,
see if there's a match. Just finding that there's a fit or not is very important, I guess. Is that
correct.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And how about pricing? Like, do you have like any ballpark figures or any kind of an advice in terms of pricing? Like, should you price according to recipes, according to the time, according to the number of photos? So, how should food bloggers basically price their services?
In this one, I would say it's a very, very difficult question to answer. So, because this depends upon what is the kind of work that you're going to take up, whether it
Mm,
is the quantity, or whether it is going to be one qualitative one thing you're delivering. So, whatever the deliverables are, accordingly you'll have to price yourself. And what the amount of time you're going to invest.
mm,
How much time is it going to take? And if you have to purchase something, like it requires a certain amount of things that you have to go buy, then what is the cost of those things? And if it is a special gear, or you want to call a professional photographer or a videographer because the brand is expecting certain things, then what is the price?
It all gets added
All
up.
those things
Hmm.
you will have to incorporate, and then you share your price to the brand. Definitely, the brand is going to come up with their budget, and then you decide whether you are able to take that price, whether it's okay for you to do it, and then decide, or is
Hmm.
the brand more important for you to have that brand
Right.
in your portfolio more important? At least in initial days, you want to take it up, even if the pricing is less.
Yeah.
Is that what you want to do it? Do it. And then as you grow, you learn. As I told you, working with every brand is going to be very challenging. It's not going to be less work. It's going to be a lot of work, lot and lots of work, because you see something, but then there's a lot of things behind the scenes. So price accordingly, I would say. So that depends from person to person. What are you looking at? And is the brand okay with it?
So, yeah, so basically, pricing comes down to where is the value sitting in the job for you? Is it the name of the client? Is it, it's really about getting the money? And also, how and where you're seeing the amount of where your skill set really needs to be put in. So, it's a measure of your skill, talent, interest, value. It's all of that that comes together in pricing and come up with a benchmark that, okay, beyond this, is a job that you would not accept or something
Correct,
like that
correct.
that works so that you don't feel like you're putting in so much and not getting the return, and that can totally suck away the joy, I guess, right?
Yes.
So I have one last question, Uma. This has been so wonderful, and I really want to drill down because I feel that as a creator it always comes down to positivity,
Mm.
passion, happiness. This really becomes the foundation of how we create and how we, even if it is our business, how we move forward. And for
Mm.
us, so for me, I have to say that I'm your audience. I'm sitting on the other side and I'm seeing your success. For me, I'm seeing the 10,000 awards, the 10,000 different magazines, the publications where you're featured. And for me, you are successful. I'm seeing that. And so from that perspective, you're a very successful food blogger to me. But how about yourself? Like, how do you see your success and how do you measure success for yourself? Because I feel like as a creator, it's very easy to always undermine yourself, to always feel you're not good enough, compare yourself. So, first question would be, how do you see your success? How do you see yourself successful or not? And secondly, for any food blogger who are out there in the market, how should they find success and what should they find success in?
See, like you said, success, I think, is something that makes you happy, right? So, are you happy creating content? Are you happy sharing your recipes? Are you happy cooking? Is this what you wanted? And is this what makes you happy? So, that is something you always have to see. And that is something that makes me happy. And I know that I want to do this. So, as a food blogger, if you want success, first thing is, does sharing the recipes, does taking videos or photos or putting it as a blog, does that make you happy? If it makes you happy, you are successful because you have found your thing. You have found what you are good at. You have found happiness. That is something everybody wants, right? What I want to be or what I want to become. It's very difficult to find out what we are good at. We keep dabbling it. So I realized it only when I was 40. So it took so many years, X amount of years. So there's no hurry, and find out what makes you happy. Find out what you're good at and what you are happy at. That is definitely success. And for me personally, I feel I share my recipes, and if even one person tries it out and shares the feedback with me, that is success for me. That is happiness for me.
Oh, wow.
Because that is the real thing why I'm sharing, right? That is why I'm sharing recipes, not for anything else, not the awards and other things. That is only because of the love what people give, and maybe for the hard work. But the real happiness is when a person tries out the recipe. Like yesterday I shared the mint ginger rasam recipe. Immediately somebody tried out, clicked photograph and shared that it is soothing for my throat, because now seasonal change is happening at my place only. Even I'm having the allergy. My daughter is not down. My husband is not so well because of the weather. It's the same thing everywhere, right? If
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
happening here, it's happening everywhere. And this rasam helped me. It is really soothing for my throat. That's why I shared the recipe. And somebody tried out and said it's soothing for my throat. I'm very happy.
Oh,
That is
wow.
that is success for me. That is what motivates me to keep, like you said, consistently share. Why I want to share? I feel even one person benefits because of my recipe. One meal is done at home, and they had amazing meal, one memorable meal. Like you said about the idlis, and that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am very happy. I'm very happy. It was a memorable meal, right? It will
Yes.
be a cherished memory. And I'm part of that family. I'm part of that meal. Somewhere, small little contribution is there.
Oh,
That is
wow.
happiness. For me, that is success. That's why I keep mentioning it. I keep,
Yes.
even in my Instagram, I keep mentioning it that your feedbacks mean the world to me, and do share your feedback. And people do share feedback. I'm very, very happy.
Amazing. And I have no doubt that this truly does mean success to you because you come from a place of passion and you do it out of love and joy. And that's why you've been able to reach another height. I feel like
Mm.
you've taken things to the next level only because you weren't chasing anything material. You have one bigger purpose in food blogging and you've kind of chased that. And that has led you to a lot of milestones, a lot of material successes, I would say, which are also important. They are kind of endorsement of our love, passion, and hard work. And I feel like you've achieved that. So I think as food bloggers, as creators, we kind of have to keep our bigger purpose. It's like keeping your eye on the ball. So our bigger purpose is the ball.
Yeah.
And
Because
wow.
other things really demotivates you. You see, if you're only for the likes or the follows, some days it will come in millions. Some days they will not even be,
Yep.
10,000 or 5,000 or whatever views. That is not going to keep you happy at all. One day you will be thrilled, jumping, and one day you will be very sad. Why my post is not reaching? Why nobody is seeing my post? If that is going to be your thing, then you're going to easily get demotivated. But if you have a bigger joy or bigger happiness,
Yep.
bigger aim, you are really doing it, then I think it will just flow.
It will. It will.
But
And
then if you're going to, as you said, professionally get into it, you need an anchor to have this joy. Otherwise, definitely you will have to be behind brands. If you have
mm,
a bill to pay and you are at the thing, then you have to definitely have an anchor. Otherwise, it is very difficult.
and that passion,
I
that
was
place of
fortunately
passion
I
and
had
joy
it.
is the anchor. Yes.
Fortunately, with God's grace, I had it. That is why I didn't have to worry about other things, and I had to do. I could
That
do
is the
this.
financial stability. Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Definitely, definitely.
All right. Okay. I love it. I just love the positive note on which we are ending this episode. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like you've taken away the complexity. You've made everything look like it's all doable. Anyone can do it. As long as you have your heart in the right place, you have the money in the right wallet, and also you're ready to work hard. So I think that you really put those three things into perspective. Thank you so much, Uma, for being here. And before you go, can you please share your social media handles with our audience so they know how they can see all your lovely, beautiful recipes?
I have an Instagram handle at MasterChef Mom. I have a YouTube channel, MasterChef Mom. Please do subscribe. And I blog at masterchefmom.blogspot.com. So all my recipes, 1,100 plus recipes are there on my blog. So do check it out. But don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And of course, I have a Facebook page by the same name, MasterChef Mom. And thank you,
Fantastic.
Jyotima, for giving me this opportunity. I hope I have added some value to your viewers, and because I have shared whatever little learnings I have got through the years of blogging. So much to go still, but I hope I have added some value.
I think your little learnings are very big learnings for a lot of us. So thank you for being so generous in sharing your knowledge. And I'm sure that you've left a lot of folks with inspiration and the hope to be able to become professional food bloggers. So thank you, Uma, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jyotima. Hope to see you soon.
So that was Uma. And wasn't she exactly like how I described her? She's simple, she's humble, and yet she takes things to the next level. I mean, her achievements, her awards are a testimonial to her amazing work. And I know that she called her work as, little learnings. I think they are very big learnings. And for me, I think that we can learn skills, we can learn technology, we can maybe even battle with financial instability. But if we don't have the right mindset, we can never thrive as a creator. And I definitely see food blogging as an art because it comes from a form of art, which is cooking. That is where it kind of rises from. So I feel that the ending was very strong for me. And so just having that one thing that will bring happiness to you in food blogging, just establishing that right in the beginning, I think that is what can set you up for success. I think that's why Uma is so successful, because all that matters to her is, did someone create my recipe? Did someone like it? And that is all that she's chasing. So definitely have your heart in the right place when you're food blogging. But other than that, the challenges, the clients, the values, the tech, the support and the finances that you need to have, I think Uma left us with a lot of insight into that. And if you have ever debated whether you should turn your hobby of food blogging into profession, then I am certain that you got a ton of answers here. All right. But if you do have more questions, then please send them to me at hello@myfoodlens.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Gutama_myfoodlens. All right. I'll see you next week with another episode. Bye-bye.